Welcome, everyone. We're starting at an odd hour, but I don't care. Hope everybody is blessed today. Hope everybody's having a good day. The 24th anniversary of September 11th, 2021. No, 2000. Oh, 2001. Um, and of course, another tragedy the day before, Charlie Kirk shot and killed in Utah. This is September's a tough month. It's a tough month. I'm trying not to get too much into that Charlie Kirk thing. Maybe we'll save it for the late night hours where nobody cares anymore. But this is Thursday, which means we talk about wrestling. So the big subject that I didn't really get to touch is Stevie Richards and his criticism of Kyle Fletcher. I didn't even talk about it on the review for Dynamite because I hadn't listened to it completely yet. And then I saw that Meltzer replied. I listened to a little bit of what Meltzer said, stopped it, and then decided I'm gonna save the rest for this video. So we just gonna. I needed something to talk about on the live stream anyway. The shorts and things are leaving me kind of devoid of subjects. Um, Speaking of which, if you guys enjoy the shorts, let me know in the comment section. If you guys want me to stop doing shorts, let me know in the comment section. But the shorts let me get my thoughts out pretty quickly, and we can clearly go over some of those things later on. Because since we'll be here for about an hour or so. So let's get into it. You know, there's not a lot going on here, and I don't want to hold you guys up for too long. Let us get into Stevie Richards and his critique of Kyle Fletcher. So obviously somebody clipped it, which is about 45 seconds from his podcast, and then we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna play the whole thing, and I'll probably reply in bits. So let's let's get this thing started. Turn it up a little bit so you guys have an opportunity to hear it.
He looks like to me. He looks like an eventual NXT superstar. No, I'm saying because, like you just said, he needs seasoning. He needs somebody to teach him how to work. He needs to up his game. He needs to know psychology of when and when not to do stuff. And unfortunately, in AEW, I don't see anybody that's listened to that could do that. These used to be the Arn Andersons, Dean Malenkos. You still have a Jerry Lynn there. You have people there that can coach you, but I don't think. But then the culture of AEW is the more you do, the more over you'll get. But that's not true. That's why I say eventually he may move laterally or eventually down and then sign with NXT and be in WWE.
Okay. So I listened to that and I didn't hear anything that was out of the ordinary when it comes to what Stevie Richards had said. I don't think he attacked Kyle Fletcher. What he basically said is that if Kyle Fletcher wants to get better, he needs trainers that, you know, take an interest in him and actually kind of coach him on how to improve his game. That's what I heard. So let's play it again so that I make sure I was wrong. Make sure I'm not wrong.
Or eventually down and then sign with NXT.
Jesus.
He looks like to me, he looks like an eventual NXT superstar.
All right. So I guess what he's just talking about just from the look, you know, maybe.
No, I'm saying because, like you just said, he needs seasoning. He needs somebody to teach him how to work. He needs to up his game. He needs to know psychology of when and when not to do stuff. And unfortunately, in AEW, I don't see anybody that's listened to that could do that.
All right. So one of Stevie Richards' pet peeves is always safety. And there's been quite a few, let's say, clips of Kyle Fletcher being less than safe in the ring. So I understand that somebody like Stevie Richards, who his whole gimmick is safety, that he would prioritize safety over that. Plus, there's always the young thing with Fletcher being like in his mid-20s. He obviously has not perfected his craft. He's obviously going to get a little bit better. But what I'm so far, my interpretation of what Stevie Richards said is true. That he wants he wants Kyle Fletcher to improve, but there's nobody in AEW that's going to get him better. That's what it sounds like to me.
These used to be the Arn Andersons, Dean Malenkos. You still have a Jerry Lynn there. You have people there that can coach you, but I don't think. But then the culture of AEW is the more you do, the more over you'll get. But that's not true.
That is absolutely facts, what he just said. These guys are doing too much. They smother the crowd in moves. I mean, it stands to reason, like, you see some of the biggest reactions on planet Earth are not really from moves, guys. I mean, just objectively think about it. Who got huge pops and what was their move set? It was nobody who can do a shooting star whoop-de-doo. If it was about moves, Ricochet would be the most over guy in the history of the business. Right? I mean, let's think about it factually. If we looked at it from the perspective of the AEW fans, which is the more you do, the more over you'll get, which absolutely Stevie Richards nailed it. That's what they think. If you truly believe that, then the people who do the most athletic moves possible would be the most over. And they aren't.
That's why I say eventually he may move laterally or eventually down and then sign with NXT and be in WWE.
All right. So what it sounds like to me is he's saying that Kyle Fletcher will not get better dealing with AEW. And this has been said about other people, not just Kyle Fletcher. Kyle Fletcher is just kind of the guy of the moment that this critique is being, levied at. But this critique has been levied at Ospreay. It's been labeled at Ricochet. It's been, people who do a bunch of moves for the AEW fan base. That's typically the criticism that they get is they do too much. The Young Bucks, all of these guys. Now let's listen to Dave Meltzer's response, because Dave Meltzer's, again, that was the first time I had listened to Stevie Richards' entire clip of him talking about Kyle Fletcher. Listen to how Meltzer butchers what Stevie Richards said.
NXT.
Listen to what he said.
And so Stevie Richards, the great Stevie Richards, his comments were basically that Kyle Fletcher needs to go to NXT to learn how to work. And he's not good enough for NXT yet, but he believes that Kyle Fletcher, if he went to NXT, would in time be good enough for NXT. He basically says that in AEW, guys try to do too many moves and they go so fast and blah, blah, blah. He needs that teaching to become a good wrestler, which he's not at this point. And then I watched NXT right after he said this, and it's Shawn Michaels NXT, and everyone just does move after move after move after move, except not nearly as good as Kyle Fletcher, not even in the same league as Kyle Fletcher. They're going as fast, in many cases faster than he is. And it's just like, dude, it's like, this guy is seriously probably, top whatever in the world right now. And you want him to go to, you think he's not good enough for this company with all these green wrestlers that are choreographing move after move after move after move, not stopping, just go, you know what I mean? It's just like, that had to be the most absolutely preposterous critique I think that I have heard someone say.
All right. Now, you listened because I played it. Did Stevie Richards say at any point in time that Kyle Fletcher was not good enough for NXT? Yes or no? Did he say that? Yes or no? Did he even imply that? Yes or no? He said nothing about Stevie Richards. Stevie Richards said nothing about Kyle Fletcher not being good enough. He didn't even imply that he wasn't good enough. He said he needed to learn how to slow down and do some psychology. That's what he said. That's what he said. He did not say Kyle Fletcher isn't good enough for NXT yet. He didn't say that. He didn't even imply that. That's why I played it 2 or 3 times so people could hear it. He did not say that. He butchered what this man said. He just sat here and lied. If you played the audio back to back, what Stevie Richards said basically is that if Kyle Fletcher wants to get better, he's going to have to go to NXT where people are going to coach him. Get better. Not that he wasn't good, but that he's going to have to get better. Meltzer has turned that into he's not good enough for NXT yet. What are you talking about? He didn't say that. He didn't. At nowhere in time did he say he wasn't good enough. He said that Kyle Fletcher is going to flatline and then start to come down, then go to NXT. Basically, that's Kyle Fletcher is going to be doing the same stuff, working at the same rate, and then eventually his athleticism and everything is going to diminish, and then he's going to go to WWE. I mean, it's not prophetic because it hasn't happened yet, but Stevie Richards sees something that is a recurring theme with people in AEW, which is that they don't really improve. Physically, they flatline. They do all the stuff that they know how to do, and they do that stuff till they destroy their bodies, and then they flatline like Kenny Omega and Ospreay and Swerve and all these guys that they got on the shelf right now. He said, go to NXT to learn how to do some psychology because nobody in AEW is teaching you how to do this stuff. He didn't say he wasn't good enough. I'm gonna play it again, as a matter of fact. God damn it! Matter of fact, let's play Meltzer first.
The great.
We're gonna play Meltzer first.
So Stevie Richards, the great Stevie Richards, his comments were basically that.
When somebody say basically, and then they start thinking up stuff, they're about to make some shit up. He literally grabbed this out of his ass.
Kyle Fletcher needs to go to NXT to learn how to work.
Didn't say that.
And he's not good enough for NXT yet, but he believes that Kyle Fletcher, if he went to NXT, would in time be good enough for NXT. He basically says that AEW guys try to do too many moves and they go so fast and blah, blah, blah. He needs that teaching to become a good wrestler, which he's not at this point.
He didn't say he wasn't a good wrestler. He didn't even say that. He didn't say he wasn't a good wrestler. Holy guacamole. He did not say he was. Now, when it comes to Meltzer critiquing the NXT wrestlers, most of those people don't have half the experience of Kyle Fletcher. They might be the same age. Like, I think Jada Parker is 26, which is the same age as Kyle Fletcher, but she's been wrestling for 3 fucking years. And Kyle Fletcher's been wrestling, 10? 8 or something like that. I mean, come on, get real. But we're not even going to go into that. Let's listen to what Stevie Richards said again.
He looks like to me, he looks like an eventual NXT superstar. No, I'm saying because, like you just said, he needs seasoning. He needs somebody to teach him how to work. He needs to up his game. He needs to know psychology of when and when not to do stuff. And unfortunately, in AEW, I don't see anybody that's listened to that could do that. These used to be the Arn Andersons, Dean Malenkos. You still have a Jerry Lynn there. You have people there that can coach you, but I don't think. But then the culture of AEW is the more you do, the more over you'll get. But that's not true. That's why I say eventually he may move laterally or eventually down and then sign with NXT and be in WWE.
All right. Again, he did not say he wasn't good enough for NXT. He said he needs to up his game. He needs to learn psychology. He needs to learn how to work. Part of these things, I wish I could listen to the whole Stevie Richards thing. It's so ridiculous that he butchered this critique so badly. It's so bad faith that he basically is arguing against a position Stevie Richards did not even make. He didn't even make this point, for God's sake. How do y'all listen to this guy, man? He just sit up here and straight up lie. If it wasn't for me thinking about it and playing them back to back, most people wouldn't even know that Meltzer butchered Stevie Richards like this. He just straight up lied about this man. He didn't say anywhere that he wasn't a good wrestler. The thing is, older wrestlers are always talking about how younger wrestlers need to learn, ring psychology and learn how to work and all that kind of stuff. They always say that. They always say that somebody needs to coach them, they need seasoning, yada yada yada. They always say that. This is not a personal attack on Kyle Fletcher. He's talking about Kyle Fletcher the same way many people talk about Kyle Fletcher. He's good, but he could be better. Obviously, he's going to have a long career. He's going to get better, but is he going to get better in AEW where they're not actively trying to improve his game? No, that's what Stevie Richards is saying. He didn't say he wasn't good enough. He didn't even imply that he wasn't good enough. Let's play Meltzer again. I want to play Meltzer one more time.
So Stevie Richards, the great Stevie Richards, his comments were basically that Kyle Fletcher needs to go to NXT to learn how to work. And he's not good enough for NXT yet, but he believes that Kyle Fletcher, if he went to NXT, would in time be good enough for NXT. He basically says that AEW guys try to do too many moves and they go so fast and blah, blah, blah. He needs that teaching to become a good wrestler, which he's not at this point. And then I watched NXT.
This is embarrassing, bro. It's embarrassing. But let's talk about this, because the critique of NXT, this is what Meltzer does all the time, though. Because there's really only two NXT wrestlers that try to do a whole lot of stuff and work extremely fast. And that's really Sol Ruka and Javon Evans. Those are really the only two moves guys on NXT. NXT is not, a highly move-based company. There's some people who are into that sort of stuff, but most don't. Most are not spot monkeys in NXT. And the ironic thing is that he mentions how NXT wrestlers are choreographing matches. Didn't he spend 15 years inflating the Young Bucks for their choreographed matches? Didn't he spend... Hell, the reason he loves Kyle Fletcher is because of his choreographed matches. Funny how choreographing matches is fine as long as it's outside of WWE. And I don't even want to talk about that. I don't even want to turn this into a WWE thing, because Meltzer is so wrong about Stevie Richards that it's utterly embarrassing. This is nonsense. And then the crazy thing is, I saw so many people critiquing Stevie Richards. Oh, he didn't have such a great career. Name a great Stevie Richards match. Like Stevie Richards was booking himself all these fucking years. You know what I'm saying? Like, come on. And no, I cannot think of one. I'm not going to try, because I'm smart enough to realize that sometimes your quarterback coach was somebody who barely made the league. Some guy who was third string. Maybe he didn't have the athleticism, the charisma, the personality, or the opportunity to be a starter, but he made the league, played a couple of years, and then ended up as a quarterback's coach. There's a lot of people who are coaches and can tell what you're missing because they did it for a long time, even though they didn't do it at the highest level. Because if performing at the highest level correlated to being a good coach, then Michael Jordan would be the greatest coach of all time, right? LeBron James would be able to take his jersey off and instantly put on a suit and just coach the team. It's not like it's two different skill sets or anything like that, right? That's another issue that we have with Meltzer and his cult. Yes, you could say certain people have never accomplished anything in wrestling, but when you look at somebody like Johnny Rodz, who was a jabroni pretty much everywhere, he trained a whole bunch of guys. And those guys ended up going on to be stars. You can be good at your job and a good coach, or you could be shitty at your job but a good coach, or you can be great at your job and be a bad coach. A lot of really good wrestlers ran shitty promotions because they were focused on how great they were. This is ridiculous. I've never seen somebody see. This is why you cannot take anything Meltzer says at face value. And then here, the crazy thing is, again, I'm gonna say it one more time. I saw Meltzer's clip first. I watched like the first 15 seconds of that clip first. And I was like, I know Stevie Richards didn't just say that. I wanted to go hear it for myself. And then I played it live for you. He didn't say nothing like that. So this is my honest to God first reaction. I am floored that a man who everybody has said is a journalist. So if he saw a video clip and got this video clip so wrong, then imagine how many phone conversations this guy has had that he's fucked up. Imagine how many written letters he probably has received that he butchered. If he got a video that he could have played the audio and replied just like I did. And he butchered it to this degree. Just imagine 30 years ago how bad he was tearing people's comments and messages and stuff up. This is absolutely ridiculous. Yes, Stevie Richards is saying the same thing that people like Billy Gunn has said. The talent don't want to listen. They want to go a mile a minute. You've got coaches and you've got producers, but they don't listen. Nobody listens to them. And that's exactly what Stevie Richards said. Nobody listens to them. If you're going to get better, you need people that you're going to listen to. He even rattled off names. Tully Blanchard, who's not there anymore. Arn Anderson, who's not there anymore. Jerry Lynn, who I assume is still there. Man, what an idiot, bro. Meltzer gave Rock versus Hogan 2 stars. That says everything you need to know. We're going to talk about Charlie Kirk near the end. I want to get this out of here. AJ3 says keep the shorts going. All right. I hear you. JS says he looks like Miles Bourne. He does look like Miles Bourne. They both shave their hair very close like this. AJ3 said that's the problem. They don't want to get better. They don't like being lectured or educated. They just listen to the fans and the dirt sheets. When you have people who are justified by cage match ratings, you're dealing with a lost cause here. Okay, a lost cause. When guys, you tell a guy, I mean, you would think that working in smaller and smaller buildings, people would wake up and be like, hey, what the hell is going on? Why each building we go into is small? Like we have the capacity to sell 10,000 seats at a pay-per-view or something like that. Why are we doing less than 1,000 for a Dynamite? That would be, you know, the light bulb would go off over our head. Like something is going wrong here. But the thing is, AEW is wrestling for a very specific kind of fan. And that very specific kind of fan don't want to hear what Stevie Richards or any of those old fuddy-duddies like Cornette or, you know, Dutch Mantel or anybody like that. They don't want to hear nothing these people have to say. Because Meltzer has justified and vindicated them for decades. Oh yeah, the old guys always say you do too much. You remember they said Ric Flair did too much. I mean, that just justifies the stuff that they do. And then you wake up in a world where guys are falling apart again. Just look. You don't need to take my word for it. Just look at AEW's roster. How many of them working a mile a minute, choreographed matches? Let's do 100 moves. How many of those guys are injured right now as we speak? Or they're significantly slower than they usually were. Look at Tanahashi, for God's sake. That man couldn't even sprint. He can't even speed walk. He walks like Matt Hardy, and Matt Hardy's been wrestling longer than he has. Matt Hardy has been wrestling since 1994. Tanahashi walks like him. It's ridiculous, man. The Hardy Boys have been doing this since they were teenagers. Obviously, Matt Hardy would be old and beat up by now. But look at Tanahashi. When did he debut? In like 2003 or something like that? It was years after Matt Hardy. It was probably before. It was probably like the late 90s, maybe. Somebody look that up for me real quick. AJ3 says, just like that clip I saw where the guy talking about artists who got 1 billion streams but couldn't sell out 1,000-seat arenas. Yeah, but that's music business is fake. And I think a lot of people recognize that now. Once they stopped botting a lot of these streams, they say Kendrick Lamar lost 3 billion streams when they stopped botting the bot accounts. He still is able to sell out arenas though, so it's not like he's that harmed by it. He still does billions of streams. It goes to show that the labels are inflating things. You said they all came in the dojo at the same time. John Cena moves better than Tanahashi. Tanahashi is only a year older than Cena. Poor Tanahashi. Okada's younger than Cena. And look how he moves. Omega is younger than Cena. And he's on a goddamn Undertaker level contract where he works like 2 weeks at a time and then takes 6 months off. Tanahashi started in 99. All right. So Matt Hardy has been wrestling longer than Tanahashi. Oh. I was trying to think of when I was trying to estimate how long Tanahashi's been around. I was comparing him to Nakamura because I remember Nakamura wrestling Brock Lesnar, and that was in like 2004 or thereabouts. No, it wasn't 2004. It was probably like 2005 or 6 or something like that. And Tanahashi wasn't a star yet. Yes, Cena started in 99. Yes, he started in 99 or 2000 thereabouts in that general area. And they didn't put him in developmental until 2002. Phenomenal Ace says Tanahashi was good at his peak. You know, thought his matches with Okada were better than Omega, but they always doing some batshit crazy spots. I like Tanahashi more than Omega and Okada. I truly appreciate the Ace. I wish he had retired 2 years ago. I really do. Because seeing him fuck around is really bad. Okay, yeah, he made his 99 debut. All right, fair enough. Meltzer said Kurt Angle has no 5-star matches. There's guys who blog who say Kurt Angle wasn't even good. So there's that. And these same guys who watch Ring of Honor every week talking about how great Lee Moriarty is. So, I mean, it is what it is. I mean, I hate to yuck people's yums, but that's what they say now. They say, you're yucking my yum, whatever that means. It doesn't matter. But I always take into account that people like weird things. That's like me. I really don't care for Kenny Omega, but I love me some Ultimate Warrior. I would rather watch Ultimate Warrior squash the Honky Tonk Man than watch any fucking Okada Omega match. When you feel that energy of the Ultimate Warrior coming out of down that arena like a fucking shotgun. For starters, when that guitar hits, the energy in that building is that's insane. And not one person was disappointed that match didn't go 30 minutes. It was exactly what people wanted to see. Ultimate Warrior came out like a house of fire. Boom, boom, boom. Pin the Honky Tonk Man, win the belt, run on out. Everybody's happy. I would watch that 1,000 times for the sugar rush of that than watching any of these fake ass 40-minute epics. I'm not even gonna lie to you. Meltzer has done irreparable damage to wrestling. Tully himself said no one came up to him for advice in the locker room. Jake Snake Roberts said the same thing when he was there. I don't know if he's still there. I think he's still there. You said you're right. He should have retired 2 years ago because he had that shitty match with Swerve on Collision, if you remember. He brought the frog splash and it looked embarrassing. I don't even remember that match, but I know that's when I noticed he couldn't walk. You know, that's when he didn't give Kurt Angle versus Chris Benoit from the Royal Rumble 5 stars. Amazing. Yikes. I don't think he gave Shawn and Kurt Angle from WrestleMania, what was that, 21? He didn't get that 5 stars either. Nor that rematch might have been a little bit better. The Vengeance rematch, that match was fucking awesome. Kurt Angle has some really good matches, man. He was special. He was very special. Speaking of Nakamura, where is he? I don't know, collecting free money. I think he's supposed to be on the Japanese tour they're about to do. Even though obviously he's going to be on the Japanese tour they're about to do. They're about to put all the Japanese wrestlers on that tour. They'd be foolish not to. WWE info says the justification for AEW buildings are smaller. Are you a businessman or a fan of wrestling? Well, the product is whack, and so is the business. So it's what it is. Here's the thing, like what people, the conversation about the business element is that we want to see the company grow, you know? And when it came to WWE, we started seeing the company grow. Like we knew when WWE was in tough times because they was running Raw out of high school gyms. And everybody knew it was tough. And the boys complained. They weren't being paid the same. They were taking the water coolers out of the corporate offices. You know, Cornette's talked about this, and JJ Dillon has talked about, you know, everybody having to take a 5% pay cut. Not the boys, but everybody in the office and all this sort of stuff. When they were doing tough, it It was out there for everybody to see. They were running small buildings. Times was hard. They still ran WrestleMania out of a big building, but that was once a year, and maybe Royal Rumble out of a big building. But for the rest of them, they were running basically indie shops, right? Very small buildings. We would like to see the company move beyond that, though. AEW as a company, we have seen them devolve from running NBA arenas, 5,000, 6,000 people, 10,000 people, to now running the ECW arena for damn near 2 months, and it's maxed out at less than 1,000 people. And he's not doing that because he just enjoys the venue. He's doing it because he couldn't fill a regular NBA size arena. He's running GCW and MLW size arenas, where those guys are lucky to get 500 people in the building. It's truly sad, bro. Like, it is what it is. And the reason people care about gates and attendance and tickets, a lot of people care about that stuff because Meltzer made it important. When I was a kid, I never once thought about how many people was at Raw or SmackDown, or, well, not even SmackDown because I didn't care about SmackDown, but cared about Nitro. How many tickets did they actually sell? When I was watching wrestling, I never looked for empty seats. I looked to see whether the show was any good or not. And then as I got older, I started being bombarded with this guy's not a draw, that guy's not a draw, and all this stuff is based off of what Meltzer said. Meltzer said Shawn Michaels was never a draw. I looked at it and said, man, everybody seemed happy except that, it was a couple times people weren't happy that Shawn Michaels won. I think Survivor Series people were very unhappy with Shawn. But for the most part, people liked Shawn. You couldn't tell me when I was 12 that everybody hated Shawn or people was upset with Shawn or Shawn just couldn't draw and all that shit. I couldn't tell. I couldn't tell when WWE was at a low point. I could tell that creatively they had fallen short because the talent level was terrible. They was having Duke the Dumpster Drosy and all these guys, but that was it. Outside of that, I couldn't tell. The buildings seemed to look fine to me. But then when you get older, you realize, a little bit more about the business. Hey, this guy's not going to get a push because he's not, he's not a draw. He didn't sell enough T-shirts, yada, yada, yada. It started making a little bit more sense. Guys start to complain. I left WWE because I wasn't making enough money. And we weren't making enough money because we weren't drawing. And we weren't drawing because of bad booking or whatever the case may be. And you start putting all this stuff together. Now we're at this point where you've told us that WCW couldn't sell tickets for Saturday night in the early 90s, which is true. This is backed up in Guy Evans' book, Nitro. They were basically giving tickets away for WCW Saturday night for years and years. Now we know what papering is. Now because, Meltzer is questioning the WrestleMania 3 figure, we're questioning the figure of every major event. What's the difference between people with tickets sold and comps and, things that you gave away to the radio station and people showed up and got a $10 ticket because it's 2 minutes before the show starts? All that stuff is different. You created this problem, Meltzer. Don't tell everybody to shut up and just enjoy the show now. You started this. The whole reason AEW exists is because Meltzer and Alvarez had convinced people, and they still convinced, that WWE was on the verge of running out of business in 2019 because a couple shows didn't do well, and creatively they were in a funk. I think the Stomping Ground show was like really terribly attended, but I can't think of any other show that year that was that sparsely attended. And that show was, I don't remember anything about it outside of the mixed tag team match they put on that show, which was pretty bad. They didn't give anybody any reason to go to the show. That's when they was pushing Becky Lynch and Seth Rollins together, and they did those really terrible ideas with The Fiend and Seth Rollins later in the year. 2019 was a bad time, okay? But then about a year or so later, they started turning it around. Because remember, the Thunderdome, nobody had attendance, and WWE started to adapt. This is when they created the Bloodline story. And then going into 2021, when they started coming out of the pandemic, business started to pick back up. Again, they were still making money even during the pandemic, but business started picking back up. And then by the time they started getting back into regular arenas and everything, they were on fire because the Bloodline story was hot as hell. Of course, people want to give this credit to Triple H. No. What about this? That's the weird thing to me. Like, you look at what they were doing with the Bloodline story, this long soap opera stories with these monologues and, all these things. Meltzer. Triple H ain't doing none of that stuff now. So how did he even be responsible for any of that? Then they cop out and you can't give it to Triple H. You give it to Heyman. Oh, it was Heyman's idea. It was Heyman. He was doing all this stuff. Well, Heyman's still there and the show sucks. So it's almost like, there was something else that was there because all the other pieces are still in place. Bruce Pritchard's still there. Heyman, Roman, they're all still there. What changed was the format of the show. The showrunner, the bosses, those are the people who changed. The amount of time they're willing to allocate to a storyline. The amount of time they're willing to allocate to other people. We went from having shows that had 8 or 9 matches on them to shows that got 5, maybe 6. And these matches are long as shit and completely inconsequential. I started talking about TKO. I'm sorry. Let's get back on track. The only reason we cared about the business element is because Meltzer made it the most important element. He spent years talking about how so-and-so is not a draw and telling everybody that so-and-so is not a draw, whether it's Sean, whether it's Brett, whether it's Jeff Jarrett, or no matter who it is. He spent years hyping up fucking X Division matches, talking about how he was better than Raw, all this kind of stuff. He's been doing this shit for years. So now people care about the business element. Now we want to see if what you're saying is true. Prove it, justify it. He said, especially 2.0, NXT 2.0, guys like Braun Breaker, Carmelo Hayes, Tiffany Stratton, and he's wasting Braun and Melo. That's the thing, though. Like, it was funny to me because I get it. They were playing good cop, bad cop, and Vince was always willing and okay with being the bad cop because he was the guy in the seat. Nobody cares. You could just blame everything on Vince. Oh, you loved Black and Gold NXT. You really didn't because you stopped watching it when AEW showed up. So don't give me no bullshit about how much you loved it. You stopped watching it, so you didn't care about Cross and Adam Cole and Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano because you was watching Dynamite instead of watching that. So Vince stepped in, blew the whole fucking thing up, and started trying to create new stars. Oh, wow, such a crime. Now, you have people permanently stuck in NXT for years and years, and then the call-ups are shit. Remember, it was Triple H's baby. Oh, Vince is trying to ruin all Triple H's NXT stars. How many stars has Triple H made? He's had the company for 3 years. Who did he bring out of NXT and instantly give them a big push and then they got over and became a star? Nobody. Not one. Even the people he had during Black and Gold ain't working. He even got some of them back. Still ain't working. The only people that's being pushed and being successful are the people that Vince pushed. Very bizarre. Very, very bizarre. Very bizarre. Yeah, Michael Hayes. That's the name I was thinking of. WG Phil says Triple H getting credit for Finn joining Judgment Day, OG Bloodline, Sammy joining the Bloodline, Cody's whole story, and Dirty Dom is classic. The crazy thing is, they will give him credit for all that stuff, but then there's nothing else. Like, you give him credit for Dominic Mysterio. All right, so why has the steam gone out of that? He didn't even get a chance to peak for real. Him winning the Intercontinental Championship should have been the start of something special. Instead, it was the start of Dominic sitting on the couch most of the time, hanging out in the back. Now, he may win that title tomorrow, which he probably should, if we're being honest. But Dominic could be even bigger star today if they'd have pushed him since WrestleMania, which they didn't. You know, like they made a whole host of mistakes. Triple H trying to push Sami Zayn is getting Sami Zayn booed. Remember, he tried to recreate the bloodline with the MFTs. Did that work? Finn Balor still hanging out with the Judgment Day. Is that working? Phenomenal A says that was the year Vince gave Eric Bischoff and Paul Heyman the book. Oh yeah, that is true, because that was the first time they started on Fox. You are correct, because they split off the writing teams, and Heyman got the book Raw, and Bischoff fell asleep during production meetings. And ended up getting fired just weeks into SmackDown on Fox. Yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Yeah, that was pretty weird, man. That was a weird time. That was weird. Bischoff did not last a year. That's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, Stomping Grounds 2019 was pretty bad. Like, in terms of attendance, that was the shit. When people talk about how bad 2019 was, they typically talk about Stomping Grounds and the dog food segment, which was at the end of 2019, which led into, of course, Roman Reigns and Baron Corbin. I think they had a match at the Royal Rumble or something like that year. But you could tell they were setting up something special for like Drew McIntyre. You know, the whole thing with him and Brock Lesnar. Go look at the reaction Drew was getting as a babyface. This was during the downtime of WWE, when everybody's about to kill the business. Go look at Drew McIntyre's reaction when he won the Royal Rumble. Go look at that. Go look at the reaction when he eliminated Brock Lesnar. Oh, Drew looked like a fool. He was carrying a sword. Go look at the reactions. Everybody talks about the reactions today. Go look at the reactions. Go look at the reaction then, and look at the reaction for the same guy now. Note Drew McIntyre's response tomorrow night on SmackDown and see if it's anywhere near the reactions he was getting in 2019, 2020, early 2020, right before the pandemic. And then, of course, he had this Hall of Fame level feud with CM Punk just last year. Just a few months ago. Meltzer indirectly started AEW by telling Cody he couldn't sell out 10K fans in an indie show. And then that's the crazy thing right there, right? Because it was Cody who took him up on that, believed in the project, and now, 5 years later, all of the fans are constantly told Cody didn't really matter, and Cody was the last one to sign. He wanted to go back to WWE, even though it was him that believed in them and went into the whole self-promotion thing. That was him. But you talk to the fans today, Cody was inconsequential. Everybody hated him. He sucked, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Well, Look who was right and look who was wrong. Look at the crowds Cody appears in front of, and look at the crowds that the Young Bucks appear in front of. Look at the crowds CM Punk appear in front of. Look at the crowds Hangperson Page is appearing in front of. I think the proof is in the pudding. The AEW fans have been wrong at most, not every step, but most steps. I think that wrestling did need something new because TNA had suffered so badly. And when Anthem purchased it in 2018, or was it 2016? It was one or the other. But when Anthem purchased the company and basically threw it on Access and then kind of forgot about it, yes, TNA pretty much died then because nobody watched the show. Nobody had access to watch the show. So it was pretty much, it wasn't a dead brand, but it was kind of a ghost brand. It was a wounded brand. That's probably a better way to put it. So it needed something else. And Tony Khan coming in with all this money and galvanizing the indie wrestling scene. It was the right time, right move. Timing is everything. And the first couple of years of Dynamite, I would say that they were not the best shows, but they were interesting shows. You never really knew what you were going to get. They were kind of throwing things at the wall as a little of everything. Then you started seeing sort of the Codyverse form. But there was a whole lot of silly shit like Michael Nakazawa with his baby oil. It had a twerking tranny on there. It was a bunch of stuff going on. All right. Some of it was very, very, very bad. Some of it was just bad. Some of it was okay. All right. Some of it was actually good. But I've watched every episode of Dynamite. I've never been to this point of just turning the show off and not watching the main event, and maybe not even watching the second hour of the show. Like now. Like now, I barely watch Dynamite. I probably watched total 40 minutes of Dynamite. Maybe. I watch all the promos all the way through, but the matches, I don't fast forward through the matches. I watch the show live actually. So I'll just look at the screen, I'll take in a couple of things, and then I'll look away. I'll go back to reading, I'll doom scroll through my phone or something like that. But nothing captures my attention and forces me to watch the entire thing unless I'm really, really interested. Or if it's a promo segment, because I actually do watch the promo. Because the promos are the opportunity for you to actually get over something. Tell a story. And people are going to say, well, you need to watch the matches because they tell the stories in the ring. No, they don't. They tell fucking choreographed spots. They choreograph every fucking thing. And it doesn't matter anyway. Being cool only works if you're cool. And I've said that before. Like AEW has operated off the rule of cool. The rule of cool is you can break the rules as long as it's cool. If something is an established rule, you can break that established rule as long as it works. But AEW did it so much and throughout the entirety of the show that it burned people out. So now people don't watch the show anymore. Now the rule of cool doesn't work. Now you know why there are rules in the first place. And ECW, same thing. Oh, hey, let's have a wrestling promotion where there are no rules. That's great for like a month. And then you try to figure out why some matches barely start and then they get thrown out. You're like, why would you throw out about every match is no disqualification in this company? But apparently it's disqualifications when they feel like it. Why isn't every match a Taipei death match? Every fucking match is no holds barred. Like like what's happening here? But whatever. WG Phil says Kenny and the Bucks just about to sign with WWE. WWE even posted footage of Kenny and Deep South stuff in 2018. Kenny would still be wrestling if he went to WWE. Something tells me I don't think it was actually going to happen. It's an interesting thought experiment, but I don't think it was actually going to happen. Because Kenny Omega, even to this day, and I felt the same way when he went to like his first year or two in AEW. I think Kenny Omega was really, really into AEW the first year or two. And then there was something, I think about 2021, where I got a sense of he would rather be in Japan. And something tells me like that would have happened in WWE too. Is that he still would have had that I would rather be in Japan attitude. And it didn't affect him as much in AEW. But I think it would have affected him in WWE. And I don't think the Young Bucks would have just been, they'd have been clowns. They might have actually loved being in WWE though, because they like being silly and being goofy. And Vince would have seen that they have a sense of humor, and they'd have been doing cartwheels to the ring, covered in rainbows and sprinklers or whatever the fuck. It'd have been really over the top. But I don't think they would actually ever come into WWE. And that was one of the good things that I liked about AEW is that they brought in so many new talent, people that I had never seen before. But that was also the bad thing, that they brought in so many new talent, people I'd never seen before, and then I realized why I had never seen them. You know, like I realize now why I had never seen Sonny Kiss before. He popped up in AEW, even though I believe he was in Lucha Underground, but I didn't remember that he was there. But they did. They didn't really introduce me to anybody that I actually liked, because a lot of the core members of AEW, I saw them in Ring of Honor, so I wasn't like introduced to them through AEW. If somebody, I guess AEW introduced me to Darby Allin, because I wasn't watching Evolve at the time, so I watched it when it got up on the network, and he was already in AEW by that time. So I guess you could say they introduced me to him. Speaking of which, Evolve is not on Peacock anymore. Did y'all notice that? They took it off of Peacock, the Evolve library. Where did it go? Why did they take it off? And where did they put it? Where is it? Where did it go? Anyway, I think they're slowly but surely removing stuff off Peacock, by the way. I don't believe they were ever coming. AEW did offer AJ Styles and the club a contract in 2019. The rumor was they were going to be in the main event with Chris Jericho's group at the time. Yeah, that's a mistake. AJ Styles was already, remember they had done that crazy stuff already with him being second fiddle to guys like Foley and fucking Flair and all. He did that in TNA. Let's not forget Ring of Honor and what they've done with it. The worst thing that ever happened to Ring of Honor was AEW. Like NXT was pretty bad. Like Triple H being a indie mark and just going and snatching up a bunch of indie talent like Adam Cole and Red Dragon and all of them. That was pretty bad for Ring of Honor. That sucks because WWE can offer more money. But then AEW showed up and it destroyed Ring of Honor. Absolutely gutted Ring of Honor. And then they gutted TNA shortly thereafter. That's the reason why right now there's not really a solid number 3, even though TNA is number 3, just the most stable company. GCW sells pretty consistently, but it doesn't have a TV, and Lauderdale doesn't want TV. MLW, they do well on events, but unfortunately they don't have a TV deal, so it's like you catch MLW. It's not even that regular schedule. It's not like even like MLW runs once a month, because GCW runs every weekend. MLW runs like every other month, like bi-monthly. You have like 6 events a year when it comes to MLW. The same thing for Maple Leaf Pro, where you know, I think they just put up a show today, but they hadn't put up a show in weeks, months. You can't keep up with that stuff. They're basically indies. So when you talk about long-running, episodic level storytelling, it's really just WWE, TNA, and AEW. That's it. And it's hard for TNA to recruit, and it was hard for Ring of Honor to keep talent as long as WWE and AEW were expanding and taking talent. The worst thing that happened to Ring of Honor is not Collision, but Rampage. Rampage started because now they needed a larger roster. And then they purchased Ring of Honor shortly after Rampage started. Because I think they get rid of Dark and Dark Elevation for Rampage, and then they got rid of them for Collision. But when all these companies started to expand, it became a problem. WWE did it smart. They expanded, but all they really did was bring in more of the PC talent. You know, NXT was the mid-range spot. If you come off the indies or something like that, you would go to NXT, and then they'd mix you in with the homegrowns. But then they just started up Evolve to bring in more of their own homegrown talent, which was a smart reason to do, and didn't really damage the other companies too much because these people didn't have access to these folks anyway. They didn't. Who really cares about Keanu Carver? Nobody knows who he is. You're gonna learn because he's fucking awesome, but nobody knows who he is, so it doesn't matter. And since these internet dorks, all they care about is names, unless it's indie wrestler guys, you can get away with that stuff. But NXT gobbled up a whole lot of Ring of Honor talent in the 2016, 2017 era up till 2020. And that's when AEW decided they were going to be very aggressive and bringing talent in. And around that time, too, Vince started to poke around NXT because the show was sagging. I know it took another year or so before Vince finally took it over and started kicking people out. But the talks of Vince taking over NXT started in like 2020 when he started seeing all of those fat guys come out of NXT, Keith Lee and Damian Priest. Even though he liked Damian Priest is actually heavier now than he was then. It became an issue. He was having problems with the talent they was bringing in, and he went to go see what the hell's going on. All these guys are old. Some of them are out of shape. Most of them are midgets, for God's sake. 32-year-old midgets, like, nah, we can't do nothing with this. And then the old man ended up being right because the only person who Vince McMahon released, only two people Vince McMahon released, went on to AEW to do anything better. Swerve and Tony Storm. That was it. Keith Lee, nowhere to be found. Adam Cole, sad. Going out sad. Roderick Strong went out sad. Kyle O'Reilly went out sad. I mean, just look at them. It's like, damn, if you was to do an honest appraisal of the guys Vince McMahon cut, again, only two people, and Tony Storm quit, so she don't even really count. But of the people Vince McMahon fired, how many of those people ended up coming back stronger and being more over? Even when we talk about Karrion Kross, he went to GCW and people forgot he existed. He made like 3 appearances in GCW and people forgot he existed already. So it's like, man, it's unfortunate. I like Kross, but going to GCW is probably a mistake. Again, they don't have TV. Now, I understand why he did it, though. He did it so that he wouldn't be locked under some kind of insane contract like MLW would probably lock him up for like 3 or 4 years or some shit like that, under the hopes that he might be able to get back in WWE. So going to GCW makes sense. But another Vince was right situation is you can start going back and doing the check boxes. They brought back Braun Strowman. They didn't do nothing with him. It was great. They didn't do anything with him though, so it didn't matter. They brought back Bray Wyatt. It was great for the initial pop, and then they started talking about how terrible he was again. Then unfortunately he passed away. You know, that sucks. But who did they bring back that they didn't either end up firing again, or they're sitting on the roster right now doing nothing? Rusev and Aleister Black brought them back for nothing. No plan. And then on top of that, started bringing in other guys too. Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. I mean, what the fuck? Come on. Well, I think part of the Velveteen Dream's problem is that he wasn't very well liked in the locker room. And then he got accused of chatterboxing with an underage boy. WWE posted the last straw had to be Gargano versus Ciampa Part 2. It probably had to be one final beat, dog. I just imagine Vince watching one final beat and just, wanting to pull his goddamn hair out. If I know anything, the old man probably heard about that fatal 4-way Iron Man match and wanted to fire everybody involved. And thought, like, what the hell? Who would book this? Oh, yeah, Chelsea Green. Okay, Chelsea Green. So 3. I forgot about her. She wasn't even on the main roster very long before they got rid of her. So, yeah, Chelsea Green. But they brought back Nia Jax. Nothing. Braun Strowman. Nothing. AOP. Nothing. Well, technically, EO never left WWE, but she was thinking about it. So I guess you can give that to Triple H that he pulled her back in. But most of the people the vast majority of these people, Triple H got nothing out of them. Most of them he barely did anything with. Cole's first feud was with Orange Cassidy. That says a lot, isn't it? His only main event, well, he got 2 main event feuds. One of them was with Hangperson Page, and the other one was MJF. And I like the one with MJF. I didn't understand why he couldn't beat Hangperson Page, though. I mean, that was something. That was something. The Generation Sharingan says, how exactly did Toni Storm get buried in WWE when she was only in the main roster for a cup of coffee? Most people just talk about her getting hit in the face with a cream pie, which happens to everybody. Kevin Owens has been hit in the face with a cream pie. Roman Reigns got covered in dog food. Chelsea Green takes a cream pie to the face every other week now. But for some reason, it was an indignity that she suffered, and therefore she quit because she was buried. But that wasn't really the case. I think it was more they didn't know what to do with her, and she knew that they didn't know what to do. But she was involved with Charlotte, which was going to help her in the long run. But that was the unfortunate thing. I don't think she got buried. I think that the dirt sheets used the word buried very liberally. All right. They take anything as a burial, which is technically not true. But she barely got started. I mean, when she made they did a whole hullabaloo for her debut, and then she was doing backstage vignettes with Dolph Ziggler. That shit didn't work. I forgot what else they tried with her. They tried like the Wild Child of the '80s or some shit they gave her, kind of crazy nickname they gave her, and that didn't work. And then she ended up with Charlotte hitting each other in the face with cream pies, and that was it. She wasn't there that long on the main roster, but she was in NXT for fucking forever. She was on NXT. She was on the main roster forever. I mean, she was in NXT forever because she was in NXT UK. She was a champion there, and then she floated around Black and Gold NXT for like 3 years. Toni Storm spent a lot of time in WWE, way more time than you think. And she was surpassed, I think, by Rhea Ripley. I think Rhea Ripley was so great that they kind of just like, yeah, that Tony Storm thing, yeah, that's interesting, but you know, she's got a nice thick thighs and all that, but fuck that. We got this gigantic Amazon here. We're gonna work with that. And there was that whole thing with Vince buried Rhea Ripley too, which is bullshit. You know, he was the one who put Rhea Ripley at WrestleMania, even though she lost to Charlotte. He's the one who booked her to be on that show. To feud with Charlotte in the first place, to be at WrestleMania. You know, then of course they had to put her in a tag team. That didn't last very long, and then when Triple H took over, she got put in Judgment Day right before Triple H took over. Cole was in AEW, tried to restart the Undisputed Era to feud with the Elite, and it was like a high power immediately said burn it with fire. Everybody started getting hurt. Everybody's body started falling apart. It was like, nope, we don't want you playing with your friends. No. Enough of this. It was so unfortunate. And the crazy thing is, he had more of his friends because the Taven and the other one, Bennett, they were in AEW at the time. So he even had the original Kingdom to work with. And this shit still didn't work. Man, my God. She had 3 WrestleMania matches with Charlotte. Doubt Vince didn't like her. Yeah, and I believe she won a world title too under Vince. Yeah, you know, so it was a big deal, man. It was a big deal. These people they have in their minds that Vince was going to bury Gunther and he was going to do all this stuff to all these people. If it wasn't for our Lord and Savior Triple H, oh my good God. If you say so, boss. What's sad about the whole Undisputed Era in AEW is that they already started hinting at turning on Cole 3 months after debuting. I think that the saddest part is nobody gave a shit. You know, like they were trying to reheat those nachos from NXT, and people was kind of like, eh. It's wild that the bro chachos ended up being more over than that. Ace said Tony said she stopped showing up the moment they asked her to work on a show. Same day she was busy with something. I think her leaving more so had to do with the schedule. I remember people were saying she was drunk and all that kind of stuff too, which there was some videos of her being intoxicated, but I don't know if that was the case. She might have just been drunk in that video. But people was like, "Oh, she had a drug problem." I'm like, I don't know about that. That seems a bit excessive. Like we're just making up shit. Now we don't got to make up stuff. You know, Cora Jade punched in the air. She got released, and she fucking quit. She quit wrestling. She's done. She getting that OnlyFans money. OnlyFans money. Cole lost his girlfriend and his career for what? A gaming Twitch channel. Jesus Christ. That's probably the only thing that make him happy. Shit. I don't think Britt Baker makes that man happy. He's probably at home giving himself concussions rather than deal with her ass. Start banging pots and pans against his own goddamn head. I don't gotta deal with her no more. They did bring Finn Balor to NXT to try to prop those ratings back up, and it felt okay for a while. And then that 2021 Balor run, it was decent. You know, it was decent. They tried to do something different with him. I didn't hate it, but it was clear that Triple H had run out of ideas. He was out of ideas. You know, he was relying so much on these same guys, and he just would not move off of these people. And it's the same thing he's doing right now. You are a pattern recognition machine as a human being. That's how we survive. We survive off of recognizing patterns. If you watch late stage Black and Gold NXT and watch WWE right now, it's the same damn thing. Triple H has his cadre of people. He refuses to move from these people. He will recreate things again and again with these people. They'll just turn heel and keep feuding with each other. They'll turn face, keep feuding with each other. And the idea of trying to get new people mixed in, no, forget it. Okay, forget it. Forget trying to get new people mixed in. That's always been a problem. It's a problem right now. You don't know how to get new people mixed in. Since Triple H has taken over, the only new face that he's pushed is Gunther. That's it. And maybe, I guess you can count Damian Priest, maybe. Now, on the women's side, he did a lot more. You know, it's still the Rhea Ripley and Io Sky show, but you got Tiffany Stratton and Naomi came back, and you know there was the Nia Jax run. They tried. The women's Intercontinental and U.S. titles are supposed to open up opportunities, even though they don't, because now a horsewoman has that fucking belt too, and the other one is barely seen on TV ever. But it's the same thing. They even have people. They got people. This is how strong the brainwashing is. They got people thinking Shayna Baszler was good. Like Shayna Baszler was the most boring NXT Women's Champion of all time. She had decent to good pay-per-view matches. Look, guys, we know women like Kyrie and stuff like that. Those were good. But for the most part, Shayna Baszler was not the best women's champion. She was the longest running. She wasn't really the best. Okay. Asuka was the best. You know, Charlotte was up there. They did a good job with Paige. You know, but not Shayna Baszler. She's not Ember Moon level. Like, do you even remember her having the belt? Like Ember Moon, like, yeah, nobody remembers that. That's also Raquel Rodriguez. Do you remember her being NXT Women's Champion? I do, because she beat Io for it, and that pissed everybody off. That's the only reason I remembered it. Punk and Rollins will be teaming up 5 months from now. Yeah, they're gonna be best buddies, probably doing promo segments, eating pizza together and shit. I'm gonna help you make these ice creams for all the great people at Chicago. I love the Bears. Shayna did have a Gunther reign. She just had the belt and just had it. I was like, God damn, enough's enough. I remember she was supposed to be a vampire. Ooh, she had a vampire gimmick. It's crazy. People just crazy, man. They're gonna kill Shayna Baszler. She won the fucking Elimination Chamber by beating everybody. That's nuts. That's nuts. That was one of the craziest things that they ever got going. Bro, I'm never going to forget that Iron Man 4-way match. I'm never going to forget that. All right. That match broke me in ways that has yet to be repaired. I was ready for NXT to go right then and there. I was like, this is season 6, episode 2. All right. You had jumped the shark. All right. I'm done with this. I'm tired of this. I'm tired of these people. I don't want to look at any of these people. Like when those main events became kick-out fests, what the fuck? Speaking of people, just popped into my mind, where is Andrade? And where is Phoenix? What happened to these guys? Andrade and Phoenix, what happened to them? Where did they go? They were a tag team. They got close to winning the tag team titles, and then they vanished. Where did they go? They've been gone for like 2 months. Is somebody hurt? They both get hurt? Because they were getting over. And now they're gone. See, this is what I mean. Like, you have all of these people. and all of this opportunity. And this is what you do with it. All right, let's talk about Charlie Kirk a little bit. Then I'm going to go ahead and wrap this thing up. All right, so there was some unfortunate situations yesterday. I'm just gonna be honest with you. When I saw the shooting of Charlie Kirk, I knew he was dead. When I saw the first clip, I was like, "There's no way he survived that," because even from a wide shot, you could see that he lost a lot of blood pretty quickly, and it was just no chance of him surviving that. It was horrifying, you know, to have a guy who. And I'm not going to be mushy and say, "Oh, I disagree with his ideas." Like, I disagree with everybody. There's not one person that I agree with 100%. But when you have people cheering somebody's death, you realize that there's some this is worse than Hulk Hogan because, well, it's just as bad. Maybe just as bad. Because this was a murder. No, now it's worse. Yeah, it's a murder. It's worse because it was a murder. Hulk Hogan died. He was 70 some odd years old. Charlie Kirk was 31. His child is 1 year old. He got another one that's 3. They're going to grow up without him. They're barely going to have any memories of him at all. And he was killed, not doing something out of control or outlandish or threatening anybody or anything like that. He was sitting in a chair with a microphone, allowing anybody to come up and debate his ideas, talk to him about whatever they wanted to talk about. He wasn't even in full control of the conversation. It wasn't a lecture. It was an open forum. Now, in terms of conservatism and all that, Charlie Kirk was a very milquetoast conservative, very milquetoast. I remember he got criticized, I believe, from like the Groypers and all that, because he had like a trans person that he brought on TPUSA, and of course he was instrumental in people like Candace Owens getting a foothold in the culture and all that kind of stuff. He was always criticized for that. He was always criticized for being too nice of a guy on the right. He was too nice. They saw him as being the nice guy, and they still do. And that's why so many people are mad. They're not just mad because another right-winger has been killed or targeted. They're mad because this guy was the nice one. There's a couple of people who are on the spicier side that are pretty fucking upset right now. And they are not fans of Charlie Kirk. Most of them have talked shit about Charlie Kirk for a long time. But they're like, he was the civil guy. Like, he was the one that was willing to sit down and talk to people. He didn't even do a whole lot of mocking. Like, some of the mean-spirited mocking you get from guys like Steven Crowder and Matt Walsh, he wouldn't even go that far. And you shoot and kill this guy? And then, of course, all the justifications come out. Oh, he's a racist. He was a fascist. He never hurt not one person. Even if you don't like his ideas, he never hurt one person. Not one. Nobody can say that Charlie Kirk put their hands on them. And it's a very strange world that in a society where people are all about causing violence and how X, Y, and Z is violence, that when real violence comes, they're happy. Silence is violence. Words are violence, but a gunshot to the neck, so are we going to start doing celebratory TikToks? I realized at some point, and watching all that stuff, that there was a lot of people who had never listened to a Charlie Kirk speech ever. They didn't know anything about him outside of what they were told by their favorite podcaster or whatever. They never listened to the guy. They barely know who he is. because some of them just say the same thing over and over again. He was a racist. He was a patriarch. He was this. He was that. Like, okay, maybe you're not quoting him though. You're just saying basically what somebody else said. So this just tells you like how the cult operates. They don't follow these people. They don't know anything about these people. And the weird thing is, even if I accepted that he was a racist, let's say that he was. Let's say that he hated black people all the way down to his bone marrow. He's not the problem. That's the thing. You happy that Charlie Kirk got killed? Okay. There was how many shootings were in Chicago over the weekend? 50. You want to take a gander at how many of those people were white? Virtually fucking none of them. He wasn't the problem. So you started seeing all these black people running around talking about how he was a racist and he was this and he was that. I'm like, y'all are fighting phantoms. Everybody is a racist, and that's reason enough for you to forego your humanity and not care. But you also don't care about all these other people who you claim that you care about, who are being taken off the planet Earth. You don't care about them either. Like one of the silliest things I saw was Tariq Nasheed. He was like, oh, he was talking about how black people are dangerous and yada yada yada. He didn't get killed by a black man. We're not sure who he got killed by yet. They have some ideas. They've arrested like a guy, and they've got another picture of another guy. They don't know if this person is trans or not, or whether this person was, whatever. But ultimately, even if he was killed by the whitest white person you could find, it do not change those black statistics. Don't change them at all. Don't change them, not one bit. Don't make Baltimore safer if Charlie Kirk's not allowed to talk about it. Doesn't make Washington D.C. safer. That's the problem that I have with this whole thing. Is they think that as long if you can be killed for mentioning the unmentionable, but as long as you don't mention the unmentionable, then it goes away. But that's not the case. It doesn't go away because you don't talk about it. That's not how that works. That's not how that works. Not at all. But I'm definitely gonna keep his family in my prayers, man, because his children are so small, and he was such a young guy. He was younger than I thought he was. And he seemed like a very straight-laced, square guy. One of the few Republicans where there was not a whole lot of scandal around him. It was just him saying his beliefs and people freaking out about the idea that a woman should submit to her husband, and he's not going to be pro-abortion. It's like, come on, this is all milquetoast shit. This is basic bitch Republicanism. No, he's not pro-abortion. No, he's not pro-gay. No, he's not. Like this is ridiculous. But now in retaliation, what should the right do in retaliation? Because we almost know for sure that this is a leftist that killed Charlie Kirk. A lot of the problem is that the right is very, very comfortable. They got the president that they wanted, most of them. They got a whole lot of power in a whole lot of states. They probably don't feel the need to retaliate. But there is a whole lot of people who are mad. And some of them might want to retaliate. So you started seeing a lot of the bigger mainstream liberals and leftists backing off of this. Oh, there's no place for violence. We need to, call for gun violence and gun control, yada yada yada, like they usually do. because there's some of them out there who are high value targets. If you're talking about, you took my bishop, I'm going to take your rook. There's some high value progressives that are going to wake up tomorrow that if this country was in a different place, they wouldn't. This is what I say, like, the best thing that the left has is that when the right's in power, they get comfortable and they're scared to use power. They don't want to be repressive because they get called fascists and Nazis and shit all the time. So they don't want to actually use any power. They want to get the power, but they don't really want to use it. The left wants to get it and use it, right? There's no point in getting it if you don't want to use it. But the right is always concerned about being called a fascist and all that kind of stuff. So they really don't want to use the power. But there's a growing frustration with left-wing violence. And our understanding that whenever there's really strong conservative right-wing values in the United States, we start seeing a whole lot of left-wing violence. It happened in the 60s and 70s. A whole lot of left-wing violence. And it was deeply problematic. Happened during Trump's first term. A whole lot of left-wing violence. Riots, destroying major towns. Now they're trying to shoot Trump. Now they shot Charlie Kirk. Like, what's going on? There's going to be people who are going to be sick of this. And we can go out there and say violence is not the answer, yada yada. There's people who are going to be sick of this stuff. If it was in the hood, there wouldn't be no question about what the next step would be. But these are supposedly civilized people, and they're going to say, we're not going to do that. There's a whole lot of people who are not willing to take it there. But understand, underneath all of the right-wing conservative talkers, there's militia guys who are really ready to take it there. And there are some progressive, high-value targets that are prime for the taking, let's put it like that. Now, I'm not saying I support retaliation, the eye for an eye, no. I'm saying I understand it, though. I understand that the right is tired of being fired from their jobs, abused by the police, abused by the media, shot at, threatened, ambushed. I mean, you got Antifa ambushing guys in the street, and then as soon as the Proud Boys fight back, all of them go to prison. Not one Antifa member goes to jail. The Proud Boys, their faces and names all over the place because they fought back. They dared to fight back. Antifa can burn down all of Seattle. As soon as somebody shows up to fight them back, they were the problem. And that's been the right's issue, is that left-wing violence very, very rarely meets right-wing violence. But when it does, things don't always go their way. And then the right gets blamed for it. Like the Proud Boys when they beat up Antifa. Like Kyle Rittenhouse, who wasn't even really a right-winger. He was staring face to face with left-wing violence, and he fought back. How dare he fight back? That's the issue, man. It feels for a lot of people like this is probably the best way for me to put it, to kind of turn down the volume. I don't know if you guys have seen the Looney Tunes Foghorn Leghorn with the dog, and how he kind of keeps getting close to the dog, and he knows the dog got a leash on, and he'll do something like hit the dog in the head with a 2x4 and then run just outside the leash's reach. So the dog like, but he'll kind of, walk up bonk, and then he'll jump right outside the leash's reach again. That's how it feels for a lot of conservatives. They're tired of, they're the ones constantly facing the negative outcomes for these terrible situations. They're tired of it being Catholic schools being shot up. They're tired of it being, Christians fired from their jobs for not wanting to get the clot shot. They're tired of this stuff. And they want somebody to do something about it. But as usual, the right wingers that are in power don't want to use any power. They're tired of the double talk. How, drug dealers and crazy schizophrenics, they deserve due process, but Charlie Kirk deserved getting shot in the neck. People are tired of that. And I completely understand. D904 says Hassan doesn't care about that, man. He thinks he deserves it. Hassan is on the list, though. Hassan knows he's a high value target. That if stuff starts happening, Hassan Piker is definitely going to be on the list of, if we're going to pick off somebody from the left, Hassan Piker will be one of those people. And he knows it. AOC knows it. She's one of them. So it's in their best interest to ratchet down the violence and even lie and act like oh no, it's not, we shouldn't do this. This is terrible, blah, 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 blah. Because if they laugh and fuck around, they're going to look like, hey, why does Hassan live in a mansion and drive sports cars and then sit behind a desk talking about how great these terrorists are and laughing at the death of right-wingers? Why do we let him exist? There's some nut job out there right now thinking about, if I'm thinking about that, I know that there's some other nut job out there thinking that. Because I'm not that crazy. I know somebody like Destiny is thinking the same thing. These are debate me bros. They will go, well, not Hassan, but Destiny is a debate me bro. He does events. You don't think somebody might want to check off Destiny? It ain't worth doing, to be quite honest, but there's people out there who are crazy. And they probably are going to create themselves a list. And there's quite a few progressives on that list. And it's insane that as much as the right absolutely lost their mind about Obama, nobody tried to touch him. And I saw in college that there was a lot of people with fantasies of wanting to kill Obama. There was fantasies, they thought, my English professor once found a site with people fantasizing about lynching Michelle Obama. This literally happened. But this is like one of those deep, dark web things. It wasn't like some kind of mainstream Republican anything. No mainstream Republican comedian was walking around with Obama's head on a noose or something like that. That didn't happen. You had to dig really, really hard for this kind of stuff. But it was there. And not one person ever tried to kill Obama. Never tried to punch him in his face, never tried to spit in his general direction. And they hated that man. They still hate him today. But compare that to Trump. They didn't try to shoot Trump twice. People are tired of this hypocrisy, how the right absolutely hates Joe Biden. They hated Kamala Harris. They never tried to kill him. They hate AOC. They never tried to kill her. They hate Ilhan Omar. They never tried to kill her either. They will sit back and talk about the squad and all these big loudmouth black women that are Jasmine Crockett and all that. They'll talk shit about them all day. They have never tried to hurt them ever. They might try to throw them in jail if they break the law. They really trying to go hard and throw them in jail, but they haven't tried to kill them. The left is going to keep pushing, and eventually that's going to be the major turn, is that somebody on the right is going to have enough. And they're going to fight back. And I think ultimately that's what they want. They want you to do that. The Generous Sharingan says there's a weird thing called a Lamborghini leftist. The champagne socialists. Yeah, and Hassan Piker is one of them. He said that Ukrainian girl that got stabbed recently on the train. Yeah, like they adopted, and they meaning the right, adopted her because we don't know what her political opinions were. I saw somebody said she had a Black Lives Matter thing in her room or whatever. But it doesn't matter. The principle is people are tired of living in a world with unchecked violence, where the institutions continue to fail again and again and allow people to shoot up schools, attack folks on trains, and it's almost always a train or a bus or something like that where people are being assaulted these days. I am so sick of looking at subway videos from New York or something like that where a guy is approached at the train station and he gets pushed in front of the train, or they're trying to attack him before the train shows up or something like that. I'm like, what the hell? People being assaulted on the trains. I'm so sick of seeing that. It's awful. You would think that if a society was serious, these sorts of things would happen one time, and then we'd have a police officer on every fucking train and one in every car watching. You would think that would happen, but no, it doesn't happen. In Detroit, we used to have people shooting at buses. They put the police on the bus for like 2 stops and then they take them off. No, because then you started seeing people shooting at the bus drivers, people spitting at the bus drivers, people trying to. I told you guys about something that happened earlier this year where these guys pulled knives on each other on the bus. A guy pulled out a knife, another guy pulled out a fucking axe, and then another dude next to me pulled out a gun because he didn't know what was going to happen. Like, people are tired of living in this unstable, chaotic reality. And the people on the right are very, very tired of it. And the people on the left, they think that kind of stuff is for you. Because people like Hassan and AOC, they live very well. They don't go face to face with this shit. They don't care about all the people getting killed in Baltimore and Oakland and Chicago and Houston and Detroit and Cleveland. They don't give a fuck. But it's a bad thing for Charlie Kirk to talk about it. But these are things that people should care about. You should care at the murder rate in these black communities. Why don't you care? Why are you madder at him for talking about it than these people who are out here doing it? But that's how you know you're dealing with clowns. The Generation Sharingan said there's some people on the left that I can't stand as a moderate, but it's not because of their views, it's because of how much they are of a douche that some of these people are. A lot of them are douches, and to be quite honest, it's some on the right too, but they're insufferable on the left because they have such a self-righteous view of themselves that they are on the right side of history, and if they can't defeat you in an argument, they just call you a racist. And that's pretty much how it boils down to it. Oh, you're a racist, you're a sexist, or whatever. Oh, you're a racist, sexist, homophobe, transphobe. A Troon got fired from DC from Red Hood, which is based. Yeah, so the Troon was actually celebrating Charlie Kirk's death and was writing a Red Hood comic, and they canceled the book and fired the writer. So the mainstream media is actually responding pretty well to it, and some private employers are doing the same thing because the right has decided to adopt cancel culture. So they're going through TikToks and finding people who are celebrating, and then letting the autists on the internet look up their job, finding their LinkedIn and everything, calling their jobs, trying to get them fired. That's better than what the alternative is. There's enough people who are mad where it could end up in a firefight, you know. But again, this is a leftist thing. Go read Brian Burrows' book, Days of Rage. All these crazy left-wing groups that was involved with bank robberies, bombings, kidnappings, all sorts of horrible stuff because they're crazy fucking communists. And the idea that this stuff's going to keep getting swept under the rug. People are tired of that. It wasn't that long ago that somebody shot up a Catholic school, and one of these troons did it. There's people getting radicalized by Twitter and all this sort of stuff too, man. Trust me, it is not going to end well. For obviously, there's been violence with Republican violence, even when Biden won the presidency in 2020. There was that there was January 6th, I guess technically was a riot, but it wasn't nearly as bad as the riots on in the other cities. But it's the closest thing to right wing violence you got. Like there hasn't been a crazy right wing shooter in years. I think the Unabomber might be the most famous. Well, it's Timothy McVeigh also, because they were both right wingers. Technically, I think the Unabomber was right wing. The Unabomber, typically his manifesto was pretty accepted by the right wing. Let's say that. But I'm not sure if you would call him right wing. But Timothy McVeigh was absolutely right wing. But there hasn't been that many. Like there hasn't been any like Republican right wing military guys that have been trying to kill politicians or kill political commentators. But this has been the case that's been going on for a long time. Like even years ago, you would have Ben Shapiro, his shows would get canceled because somebody called in a bomb threat. And nobody would get arrested for calling a bomb threat. If somebody would just call a bomb threat, which is a terrorist threat, by the way, and they'll never find out who it is. You mean to tell me that somebody threatened to blow up a school because Ben Shapiro was on the campus and nobody ever found out who it was? You just stopped looking? So yeah, this kind of stuff started to happen. This stuff was inevitable. These schools have tried keeping guys like Charlie Kirk and Ben Shapiro off the campus. They've canceled these shows again and again. They've canceled people like Crowder coming on the campus. This was in 2020, 2022, and thereabouts. And then these guys started telling like the young conservatives on the campus to sue because you can't use the facilities. Meanwhile, the young Democrats can, and that's unfair, blah, 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 blah. So then they started getting back on the campuses. And now look at what happens. Now look at what happens. It was the shouters, and they tried. Look, you could have disrupted the show, which is another thing that they do. They show up to these Ben Shapiro lectures and they have a megaphone and they'll just yell and shout, whatever. Infinitely better than shooting people. The fact that they have now gone to the point where they're not calling in bomb threats anymore. They're not showing up just to scream and shout and filibuster anymore. Now they're showing up to shoot people or threaten to shoot you. We've been the frogs in the boiling pot for a while now, and it's only one-sided. When Ibram X. Kendi was going from campus to campus talking about how terrible white people are, nobody threatened a bomb, made hard to kill him. When Robin DiAngelo was around here saying that all white people are racist, nobody tried to call in a bomb threat. Nobody tried to kill her. The only thing that happened to her that was even remotely mean is that Matt Walsh made a fool out of her in a documentary. That was it. That was it. And that's only because she usually puts herself in a cocoon where she doesn't have to answer any questions. The right absolutely does hate a lot of people on the left. They have never tried to kill them. Never even tried to scare them, really. The only time they even got close was January 6th. And I fear that that's going to change. And it might not change because of Charlie Kirk. I don't know if everybody felt that strongly about him. But the sentiment of it is they're tired of being arrested and harassed and doxxed and having it. There was that young guy who made that meme of Donald Trump tackling, I think it was Joe Biden or somebody like that in 2020, and CNN hunted him down and threatened to dox them. People are tired of that. You know, like people are sick to death of that shit. You know? They're tired of, like, when the Tenet thing happened, when Lauren Chen and all them got caught taking Russian money, that stuff was everywhere. But now David Pakman and all these people got caught taking money. You don't hear about it at all. People are tired of that shit. People are tired of the double standards, the political violence. They're sick of it. And some people are very, very riled up. Even the fake kidnapping of here in Michigan. No, nobody's a hero. There are no heroes. There ain't no heroes out. Let's use let's use that word sparingly. But the right does hate openly. A lot of people, they just don't put it in those words. They'll call them despicable and all that kind of stuff, but they have yet to try to kill them. There may be some crazy right wingers out there that'll do death threats. Maybe. You know, you'll get some mean DMs or something. But like the stuff that Jordan Peterson faced, that basically drove him into a benzo coma for years. No left winger has ever faced anything like that. No matter how batshit crazy their ideas, no matter how stupid they were never harassed the way that Jordan Peterson was harassed. Good luck finding one. Look at what they did to Alex Jones. Look at how they railroaded Trump in these lawsuits, that rape lawsuit. That woman not only did not know when it happened, what year, what day, what kind of legal system do we have here that would allow that? No, people are tired of that shit. You know, and the right is not the cult that they think it is. There's a lot of people on the right. There's a growing sentiment on the right about Trump and this Epstein stuff, right? And they're starting to break with that. That's starting to piss people off too, because they're like, "Hey, we voted for Trump. He should go ahead and prove that he's innocent on this Epstein stuff." And he keeps talking about the hoax. He keeps talking about it's fake. You're not listening to him. Prove it. But that's on the extreme end. There's some people who are perfectly MAGA who are like, I don't care about the Epstein stuff. I said it before that if there was anything too damaging in the Epstein files, Biden and all of them would have put it out there. If Trump had done anything with Epstein, Kamala Harris and all of them would have put it out there years ago. That's my opinion. It leaked, quote unquote, and it'd have been out there. No questions asked. So something tells me there probably ain't much in there with Trump's name on it. But then they also had access to it for years. And who knows whether they altered the documents or not. But there's a lot of people on the right that are not breaking off this Trump thing with the Epstein files. They want the files for sure. Not going to get them because Trump's not going to release those files. But it is what it is. You said Lauren Chen is acting like a pick-me for the genuine racist. Well, I think she's becoming a little bit harder edged too. And I think part of that has to do with how she's been treated online. And I think that's happening to a lot of people. Like a lot of people are getting more aggressive. Like politics is getting very aggressive. You know, and I think the more people see videos of folks getting beat up and shot and fired and doxxed and arrested, the angrier people are getting. The more people are willing to say the bold truth. And that's when we started seeing a lot of the aggression around Israel, a lot of the aggression around DEI and race stuff. A lot of that stuff is coming from people who feel like they've been stifled for years on these subjects. They're tired of seeing, you know, I think the George Floyd stuff really did a lot of damage to race relations. It pissed a lot of people off. You know, George Floyd getting a solid gold casket, you know, the police officer, you know, maybe getting railroaded. I didn't follow the trial, so I can't say for sure that he did. I think he may even took a plea bargain in one of these cases. But that pissed a lot of people off because you had folks showing up with kente cloths and kneeling at George Floyd's casket, talking about him like he had, you know, discovered a cure for cancer. That pissed a lot of people off. And then it's constantly with the NBA and the NFL and WNBA shoving this shit in your face every season. There's a certain level of fatigue that people are starting to get here. And it's affecting everybody. It's starting to affect everybody. And this should have been one of those things that should have been universally panned. Where we should have universally looked and been like, yeah, you don't shoot a man in the neck because you can't argue with them. That should have been not. If it was AOC, I'd say the same thing. Like, man, you can't do that. You know, you just can't just go around shooting people just because you don't disagree with them. It'd have been one thing if the motherfucker was trying to kill you. If he's brandishing a knife or trying to run you over in his car or something like that, that's one thing. But because you don't like what he has to say, you're going to shoot him? I don't care what he was saying at that point. He was outside the vectors of power. He couldn't do anything. He was on a college campus. What could he really do? You know, but that's just, you know, a little bit of perspective. But Charlie Kirk, I know I saw Tariq Nasheed say, like, oh, Charlie Kirk never did anything, yada, yada, yada. That's because Tariq Nasheed does not know who Charlie Kirk is. All right? He doesn't know who he is. He's not been following it. He don't know. He don't know that Charlie Kirk was a major reason why young people was going to the Republican Party. Because he was doing stuff like going to these college campuses, and him being a younger guy was going to these college campuses and, you know, challenging their ideas. And doing so with kindness, not with the smugness of Ben Shapiro, with the snark and the way that these guys bring it in. But he was going and being nice, trying to find some level of common ground, disagreeing when necessary, but offering some honest advice and some honest pushback. on some of these ideas. Again, he was a nice one. He wasn't going out there to mock them like Crowder was, or looking down on them like Ben Shapiro is. It was different. He was a major TPUSA was a major player in Republican politics, especially against for the youth. The fact that Tariq Nasheed supposedly followed politics, he don't know that. He's an idiot. All right. And the crazy thing is, and I didn't know this until he died, I didn't know that Charlie Kirk didn't finish high school. Everybody like, oh, he's a high school dropout. And, you know, he was going out here talking blah, 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 blah. I'm like, look, man, self-directed education sometimes is worse. I mean, well, sometimes it's worse, but sometimes it's better than, you know, your directed education. Because you didn't get that formal brainwashing. You had to follow the information as you received it. You followed subjects. You always remember things more when you want to read them too. You're like, I always remember things from books that I wanted to read more than books I was forced to read. So that's a little thing there too. But I didn't know he didn't finish high school. The fact that he was able to live comfortably, get into the White House, go on a college campus confidently and debate people who are trying to get degrees. These people who are apparently more educated than he is. And there's very few clips of him being looking like an idiot. Like there's some out there, but there's very few. I think he did okay for himself as a guy with no college degree, with no high school diploma. He did all right. And I'll talk about as somebody who dropped out of high school as well. But I went back to college though. I went and got myself brainwashed. The General Sharingan says, speaking of that, did you speak on what are your thoughts on House Democrats sending out a picture that supposedly Trump drew to Epstein? I don't think I've seen that. I may have blocked Epstein on Twitter. I got tired of hearing about it. I am a college dropout. No, I'm a high school dropout. I dropped out of high school. I went to college after I got a GED. But that was because I started self-directing on education. Right, believe it or not, if I'd have went into college right after high school, if I had finished high school for starters, I probably never would have went to college because I would have been burnt out. But because I took those years off and then college, I was a more mature, you know, especially when I wanted to go to college for. And then when I was in college, I was more focused. And then also because I had started reading before I went to college, I had gotten used to reading. You know, I still read now. You know, obviously, I talk about stuff that I read to you guys all the time. But that's when I realized that I worked better self-directed. You know, in college I was okay. You know, I did pretty good. You know, I ended up having a master's degree, so I did fine. But I also realized that self-directed education is a lot better than getting the official degree. And I learned that when I took that big final for my master's degree, because I started implementing libertarian ideas. Anyone trying to deal with that? They know it was a series of essays you had to do. They give you like these essay questions, yada yada yada. And I tossed in some libertarian ideas. You know, they talk about public-private partnerships, and I'm like, no, just do the private part. You know, like let the park be privately owned. And then the professors will be like, no, you can't. Don't say that because the people might not like that. Like the people don't know what the hell. They don't care about this park. They got potato chip bags all over the place. They don't give a fuck about the park. All right. If they cared, they would keep it clean. If they cared, the swings wouldn't be rusty. But you realize at that point The directed education is, oh, public-private partnerships. Yes, where the public keeps getting something for free that they're going to then nag a company to pay for. You're going to pay for the swings and for the cleanup, and we're going to put a logo here saying that you adopted this park, when in reality, you didn't really adopt the park. You're paying for everything, and the government's just going to give you the privilege of putting your logo on here. But you can't charge admission into the park, because that's exactly what would happen if it was a private park. And now, like, I get that, but they weren't trying to hear that I was learning shit on my own. They didn't care about that. I don't know if Charlie Kirk dropped out of college or high school. I forget which one it is. I know they said he dropped out of something. He might have been a college dropout. It might have been college. But I saw somebody say high school. I thought, like, that seemed extreme, because he seemed like, a guy who had some level of college education. But it might have been college, it might have been high school, one or the others. But ultimately, he didn't have a degree in anything, as far as I know. AJ3 said, thought on my drop my flag movement that sparked tensions between Adam 22 and Styles P. I don't know. Adam 22, I got him. I blocked everything that mentions that guy. That's the cut guy, right? I don't deal with him at all. I don't deal with him at all. He's a weirdo. So, all right, let's wrap this thing up. It's almost 11 o'clock. All right, thank you guys for your time, man. I want to talk to you guys later. All right. I'll talk to you guys on, I don't know. I might watch the fight Saturday night, so it probably won't be Saturday night. Unless it be Saturday night before the fight. Yeah, it'd probably be Saturday night before the fight. Or maybe Sunday afternoon. All right, talk to you guys later.